Our facilitator is a woman named Tanya Palmer, a co-worker of Felicia Boone, who does a lot in HR. And she shared the story about getting on an elevator in the midst of the county offices here in Hennepin County. And how, as she got on, there were two individuals who got on the elevator with her on the ground floor. She pushed her button to go to the 3rd floor. They were going up to the 23rd and the 24th floor. And they were having a conversation about why the county didn't need to have a manager for diversity and equity. She herself is biracial. And they had this conversation, got going on the ground floor. They got to the 3rd floor, and Tanya was curious about what they were saying, what they were talking about. So she didn't get off. The doors opened, and they closed, and these people kept on talking. She wasn't there. She rode all the way up to the 23rd floor with them. The doors opened, closed, they got off. And she said she just smiled and waved, said goodbye, and took the elevator back down to the 3rd floor. This director, these people who were higher up at that moment, could not see someone who was less than. Someone who had gotten on the elevator but didn't have their stature, their title, and work on the 23rd or 24th floor. I asked her about this story later on. And she said, why do you think they couldn't see me? And I asked, well, is it because you're biracial? That they saw you as African American? They just kept on going? And she said, no. It has to do with they think they have power and title and money. And I'm less than that. I'm merely a person who works in HR. She was passed right by. And I think of how often something like that happens in our lives. And I think of one doctor that I've met and have gotten to know who is changing that little by little. Her name is Marin. I've been amazed when I have interacted with Marin or have seen her in the hospital. She comes from a place of privilege. And she's cute and blonde and short and petite. She has her MD. She's had a good education. But she also went out of her way to learn Spanish. And when she walks through the hallways in the hospital as a doctor, she stops and she greets people. She says hello to the cleaning people, to the patients who have come in off of the street, to those who are struggling. And I've watched her very quickly go into a room where there was an emergency happening. And she jumped in and very quickly switched to Spanish, working to comfort and console and be present with that family. That to me is a powerful witness. And I wonder how many of those opportunities present themselves to us each and every day, where we can see our lives broken into and can find ourselves being transformed. As Daniel and I were talking about worship today, he posed the question about where the gospel is in this story. Is it just for Lazarus? I have to admit, I've been pondering that all week, because I'm also well aware of how this story has been used in Mexico and Central America and institutions of slavery, where people have said, you don't have to worry. You'll get your just reward, your goodness in heaven. Is that really gospel? Is that really good news? I say, pshaw. If that's the God, and that's the way that we portray this God in this story, much more convicted and convinced that the gospel is for Lazarus and the rich man. And it starts with that witness, that closing of this miracle about even if someone rises from the dead. Are we willing to hear that this storyteller who engages both rich and poor is willing to live this witness to the cross? To say, in that moment, I am not going to let go of you as the rich or you as the poor, but rather stretch out my arms to be in relationship with both of you and to hold you both fast because you need each other. You need to be connected with each other deeply and intimately, and that cross becomes the central witness, and on the other side, the story is that it doesn't just stop with one person or another, but with each of us. That Jesus, rising from the dead, comes over and taps us on the shoulder or knocks us down and says, you need one another. Whether you don't have 2 pennies in your pocket to rub together, or you've got a bank account with a couple $1 million, and you're looking at purchasing a cabin in the North Woods, you need each other. And the story is that at the cross, the gospel is revealed that we cannot live blocking out one another, that the chasm must be closed. It happens here and now. It happens when we show up at the rummage sale. And like Marin, instead of just walking by, turn to someone and smile. Say, how are you? Are you looking for something? Can I help you? And not just say, oh, it's over here. But to say, can I walk with you and help you find it? What happens for those who have the food shelf? Alongside giving canned goods or some frozen meat, simply ask, what's happening in your life? How's your spouse? How are your grandchildren? Have you heard what's happening at Bankrupt? Have you heard about the free food program? I'm going to be there. You want to come? There are all of these small ways that take that chasm and knock it down. So, we'll listen, even if someone rises from